Why don't you just share some of your thoughts about, navigating this as a Christian business leader?
I actually think that the whole problem is spiritual. And I am very involved in politics, as we're about to talk. I mean, I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2010 in the primaries. I've coached people running for president of the United States, Congress, governor, all the way down to dog catcher. I've been very involved with them. On the right side of things, I personally know just about every famous person you can think of and have a relationship with them. I'm very involved in politics, but I always tell people this is not a political problem. This is a spiritual problem.
Yeah.
In fact, one very famous political news person who shall remain nameless, but I was watching their television show every night, and I finally texted this person and I said, "You guys are all getting it wrong." I was talking about Hamas and the October 7th and all that stuff. I said, "You're just scratching the surface. You're dealing with it with geopolitics and demographics and all this stuff." I said, "This is a problem that goes back to Jacob and Ishmael."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And this person wrote back and said, "Who's Jacob and Ishmael?" And I'm like, wow. So I started sending articles. And
Yeah.
for the next 2 weeks, this person was sending me articles back going, wow, I never knew. You know, there will be enmity between the two of you forever.
Yeah.
And Ishmael went off and started the Arab, culture and all that. And then they ended up Muslim and, all that kind of stuff. It's a spiritual problem. And here's the problem in America. Even as late as maybe 70 years ago, probably 70 years ago, most people in America came from the same worldview. This is a clash of worldviews that we are in now.
Yeah.
And most people had the same Judeo-Christian worldview. I'll pick Thomas Jefferson, for example. Thomas Jefferson was not a Christian. He wasn't a Jew. He was a deist. He's sort of a clockmaker. God put it into action and let it go. And there were a lot of those. And yet, even up until like the 60s, when you have the radical 70s, 60s and 70s revolution, the free sex and the, drugs and drop in, drop out, all that kind of stuff, Timothy Leary. Most people came from a Judeo-Christian worldview. They just argued about how to get there. And then in the late 60s, early 70s, and the God is Dead movement and, all that kind of stuff, we started, and the takeover of colleges and universities by communists and socialists and those kinds of folks. Now, all of a sudden, they were perpetuating a different worldview. And that worldview now has come home to roost 50 years later. And now we have two competing worldviews. You have the classic Judeo-Christian capitalistic worldview, and you have the secular, humanist, communist, socialist worldview, where man is God and the Judeo-Christian God is God. And so now they have different worldviews. It's not an argument of we both want to go to the same place. How do we get there? Now it's we want to go this way. No, we want to go this way. And here's what makes it something that is never going to be overcome without spiritual revival. And that is both sides view their worldview as a moral imperative. They don't think it's just a better way of doing it. They don't think they've just built a better mousetrap. They think that it is a moral imperative. So let's take abortion, for example. No real, true pro-life person is going to say, you know what? Let's just reduce the amount of abortions. Let's negotiate and reduce the amount of abortions as long as we're killing less children. No, because they have a moral imperative to save life, because life is a gift from God. Our rights are the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. But then you take the other side, which has a worldview, and their moral imperative: nobody's going to tell a woman what to do with her own body. The government should not have control over my body. And it is a moral imperative from their perspective to stand for that. And never the two shall meet. And so we've become so hyperpolarized, I believe, not because of politics, but because of worldview. And the worldview is based on how we view God and whether or not there is a God.